Hola, amigos, parte 4. Today we are going to continue, seguir, reading The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime, okay? If you have not already seen parts 1, 2, and 3, check out down in the description and I will put links so that you can watch the first 3 parts and catch up on the story, okay? We're getting a lot of good vocabulary and a whole lot of good input. Okay, here we go. I said that I wasn't clever. I was just noticing how things were, and that wasn't clever. That was just being observant. Being clever was when you looked at how things were and used the evidence to work out something new, like the universe expanding, or who committed a murder, or if you see someone's name and you give each letter a value from 1 to 26, where A equals 1 and B equals 2, etc. And you add the numbers up in your head and you find that it makes a prime number, like Jesus Christ, which makes 151, or Scooby-Doo, 113, or Sherlock Holmes, 163, or Dr. Watson, 167. Alright guys, I realize that's a lot and it's complicated, but once again, that's just showing that this kid is always thinking, doing math in his head, really having some deep and wild thoughts, okay? It's just once again that look inside the mind of an autistic kid, and pretty interesting. Mr. Jevons asked me whether this made me feel safe, having things always in a nice order, and I said that it did. Then he asked if I didn't like things changing, and I said I wouldn't mind things changing if I became an astronaut, for example, which is one of the biggest changes you can imagine, apart from becoming a girl or dying. He asked whether I wanted to become an astronaut, and I said I did. He said that it was very difficult to become an astronaut, and I said I knew that. You had to become an officer in the Air Force, and you had to take lots of orders and be prepared to kill other human beings, and I couldn't take orders. Also, I did not have 20/20 vision, which you needed to be a pilot, but I said that you could still want something that is very unlikely to happen. Terry, who is the elder brother of Francis, who is at the school, said I would only ever get a job collecting supermarket trolleys or cleaning out donkey shit at an animal sanctuary, and they didn't let spazzers drive rockets that cost billions of pounds. Okay guys, so supermarket trolleys. The supermarket is a store, tienda, where you go to buy food, supermercado. Now they say trolleys, but we have to remember that this is in Britain, okay? And here in the US, we would say shopping carts, but apparently in Britain they say trolleys, okay? When I told this to my father, he said that Terry was jealous of me being more clever than him, which was a stupid thing to think because we were not in a competition. But Terry is stupid, so quod erat demonstrandum, which is Latin for which is the thing that was going to be proved, which means thus it is proved. I'm not a spazzer, which means spastic, not like Francis, who is a spazzer. And even though I probably won't become an astronaut, I am going to go to university and study mathematics or physics and mathematics, which is a joint honor school, because I like mathematics and physics, and I'm very good at them. But Terry won't go to university. Father says Terry is most likely to end up in prison. Terry has a tattoo on his arm of a heart shape with a knife through the middle of it. But this is what is called a digression, and now I am going to go back to the fact that it was a good day. Because it was a good day, I decided that I would try and find out who killed Wellington, because a good day is a day for projects and planning things. When I said this to Shaban is that weird name for the woman again, Shaban, she said, well, we're meant to be writing stories today, so why don't you write about finding Wellington and going to the police station? And that is when I started writing this. And Shaban said that she would help with the spelling and the grammar and the footnotes. Mother died 2 weeks later. I had not been into hospital to see her, but Father had taken in lots of food from Marks and Spencer's, which I believe is a supermercado. He said that she had been looking okay and seemed to be getting better. She had sent me lots of love and had my get well card on the table beside her bed. Father said that she liked it very much. The card had pictures of cars on the front. It looked like this. I did it at school with Mrs. Peters, who does art, and it was a lino cut, which is when you draw a picture on a piece of lino, and Miss Peters cuts round the picture with a Stanley knife, and then you put ink on the lino and press it onto the paper, which is why all the cars look the same, because I did one car and pressed it onto the paper 9 times. And it was Mrs. Peters' idea to do lots of cars, which I liked. And I colored all the cars in with red paint to make it a super, super good day for Mother. Father said that she died of a heart attack, and it was not expected. I said, what kind of a heart attack? Because I was surprised. Mother was only 38 years old, and heart attacks usually happen to older people. And Mother was very active and rode a bicycle and ate food which was healthy and high in fiber and low in saturated fat, like chicken and vegetables and muesli. I do not know what that word muesli is. Or muesli. I'm not sure. I haven't seen that before. Father said that he didn't know what kind of heart attack she had, and now was not the moment to be asking questions like that. I said it was probably an aneurysm. A heart attack is when some of the muscles in the heart stop getting blood and die. There are 2 main types of heart attack. The first is an embolism. This is when a blood clot blocks one of the blood vessels, taking blood to the muscles in the heart. And you can stop this from happening by taking aspirin and eating fish, which is why Eskimos do not get this sort of heart attack, because they eat fish, and fish stops their blood from clotting, but if they cut themselves badly, they can bleed to death. But an aneurysm is when a blood vessel breaks and the blood doesn't get to the heart muscles because it is leaking. And some people get aneurysms just because there is a weak bit in their blood vessels. Like Mr. Hardesty, who lived at number 72 in our street, who had a weak bit in the blood vessels in her neck and died just because she turned her head round to reverse her car into a parking space. On the other hand, it could have been an embolism because your blood clots much more easily when you are lying down for a long time, like when you are in hospital. Father said, "I'm sorry, Christopher. I'm really sorry." But it wasn't his fault. The Mrs. Shears came over and cooked supper for us, and she was wearing sandals and jeans and a t-shirt which had the words windsurf and Corfu and a picture of a windsurfer on it. And Father was sitting down, and she stood next to him and held his head against her bosoms and said, "Come on, Ed, we're going to get you through this." And then she made a spaghetti and tomato sauce, and after dinner she played Scrabble with me, and I beat her, 247 points to 134. I decided that I was going to find out who killed Wellington, even though Father had told me to stay out of other people's business. And this is because I do not always do what I am told. And this is because when people tell you what to do, it is usually confusing and does not make sense. For example, people often say, "Be quiet," but they don't tell you how long to be quiet for, or you see a sign which says, "Keep off the grass," but it should say, "Keep off the grass around this sign," or "Keep off all the grass in this park," because there's a lot of grass that you are allowed to walk on. Also, people break rules all the time. For example, Father often drives at over 30 miles per hour in a 30-mile-per-hour zone, and sometimes he drives when he has been drinking, and often he doesn't wear his seatbelt when he is driving in his van. And in the Bible it says, "Thou shalt not kill," but there were crusades and 2 world wars and the Gulf War, and there were Christians killing people in all of them. Also, I don't know what Father means when he says, "Stay out of other people's business, no seas chismoso." Stay out of other people's business. because I do not know what he means by other people's business. Because I do a lot of things with other people at school and in the shop and on the bus, and his job is going into other people's houses and fixing their boilers and their heating, and all of these things are other people's business. Shaban understands. When she tells me not to do something, she tells me exactly what it is that I am not to do, and I like this. For example, she once said, "You must never punch Sarah or hit her in any way, Christopher, even if she hits you first. If she does hit you again, move away from her and stand still and count from 1 to 50, then come and tell me what she has done, or tell one of the other members of staff what she has done." Or, for example, she once said, "If you want to go on the swings, and there are already people on the swings, you must never push them off. You must ask them if you can have a go, and then you must wait until they have finished." Okay, here where it says ask them if you can have a go, we would say if you can have a turn, okay? If you can have a turn to play on the swings, but here, because the differences between British and American English, if you can have a go on the swing. But when other people tell you what you can't do, they don't do it like this. So I decided for myself what I am going to do and what I am not going to do. That evening I went round to Miss Shear's house and knocked on the door and waited for her to answer it. When she opened the door, she was holding a mug of tea and she was wearing sheepskin slippers, and she had been watching a quiz program on the television, because there was a television on and I could hear someone saying, "The capital city of Venezuela is A. Maracas, B. Caracas, C. Bogota, or D. Georgetown." And I knew that it was Caracas. She said, "Christopher, I really don't think I want to see you right now." I said, "I didn't kill Wellington." And she replied, "What are you doing here?" I said, "I wanted to come and tell you that I didn't kill Wellington, and I also want to find out who killed him." Some of her tea spilled onto the carpet. I said, "Do you know who killed Wellington?" She didn't answer my question. She just said, "Goodbye, Christopher," and closed the door. Then I decided to do some detective work. I could see that she was watching me and waiting for me to leave, because I could see her standing in her hall on the other side of the frosted glass in her front door. So I walked down the path and out of the garden. Then I turned round and saw that she wasn't standing in her hall any longer. I made sure that there was no one watching and climbed over the wall and walked down the side of the house into her back garden to the shed where she kept all of her gardening tools. The shed was locked with a padlock and I couldn't go inside. So I walked round to the window in the side. Then I had some good luck. When I looked through the window, I could see a fork that looked exactly the same as the fork that had been sticking out of Wellington. It was lying by the bench by the window, and it had been cleaned because there was no blood on the spikes. I could see some other tools as well, a spade and a rake, and one of those long clippers people use for cutting branches which are too high to reach. And they all had the same green plastic handles like the fork. This meant that the fork belonged to Mrs. Shears. Either that or it was a red herring, which is a clue which makes you come to the wrong conclusion, or something which looks like a clue but is not. I wondered if Mrs. Shears had killed Wellington herself. But if she had killed Wellington herself, why had she come out of the house shouting, "What in fuck's name have you done to my dog?" I thought that Mrs. Shears probably didn't kill Wellington, but whoever had killed him had probably killed him with Mrs. Shears' forks, and the shed was locked. This meant that it was someone who had the keys to Mrs. Shears' shed, or that she had left it unlocked, or that she had left her fork lying around in the garden. I heard a noise and turned round and saw Miss Shears standing on the lawn looking at me. I said I came to see if the fork was in the shed, and she said, "If you don't go now, I will call the police again." So I went home. When I got home, I said hello to Father and went upstairs and fed Toby, my rat, and felt happy because I was being a detective and finding things out. Alright guys, we'll end it there for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this next part in this series. We're getting some good input, guys. Como siempre, muchísimas gracias por ver. Nos vemos.